by the 1980s, it became kind of set in stone that morning shows will be game shows, maybe some talk shows. Afternoon will be soap operas. It may shock people to know that in the 70s, the Match Game was a big attraction afternoons there on CBS. But then they expanded all the soap operas to 1 hour. I was amazed and surprised, thankfully, when they did the revival of Let's Make a Deal. They put it on in some markets in the afternoon. I'm like, good. They actually remember they can put a game show on afternoon.
And as the voice of Wesley Hyatt, he's a frequent contributor to Stu's show. He's also the author of over 10 classic entertainment books, including his newest one, which is called I'd Like to Buy a Vowel, Spinning 50 Years of Wheel of Fortune. And last time we teased you saying the networks have forgotten something very, very important. You know, one thing I was trying to figure out, because when Wheel of Fortune got canceled, so too did Classic Concentration. Yet for some reason, NBC kept airing repeats of the show from the first couple of years, from 1991 to 93. I mean, I was thinking to myself, why are they carrying the show if they're not doing new episodes of it?
I guess it was just more effective that way on their ledger. I don't know. It was really weird. You know, NBC was kind of in desperate straits in the early 1990s when it came to what they were doing there. You know, they had categories. They tried to do that as a TV show. That didn't work. And then they had Caesar's Challenge. And then after Caesar's Challenge, it was just a lot of really bad, you know, news shows, talk shows. There was The Other Side, the occult show, which was stupid, you know, and it was just...
was that the one with John Edward, I think it was called? Was the host, I think it was? I can't remember, but it sounds familiar.
It might have been him. Yeah, I think there was another woman that took over after. It was just, you know, why is this, you know, why is this on here? You know, because they lacked faith in game shows, but they didn't have anything interesting to show otherwise. And, you know, it was pretty much, you know, by the end it was just a couple of soap operas, and they didn't last, or they'd have a little bit of enthusiasm, and then once their young audiences left them, there was no old audience who wanted to join them. So, you know. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what happened with Passions. Passions was mainly big with a young crowd of viewers, and then after, 6 or 7 years, they'd moved on, and so there was no one left willing to join them, so they went off the air. The passion died. Yep. Yes, they did, you know, and it's rather miraculous, you know. I think it was helped out by the creators there of Days of Our Lives. To their credit, they fought to keep that show on the air for a long time because, let's face it, its ratings were never great during the last couple of years. If it had been on CBS or ABC, it would have been canceled. I guarantee you. It was always lower than what they had there, and yeah. So, and it's going to be interesting to see how daytime goes now. The CBS apparently is going to be replacing the talk with a new soap opera, which is like the first one of this century, and I don't think it's going to do that well. I don't think they're going to have the audience to do that, and if they don't, they may lose the time back to their affiliates. I don't know. It's been impressive that CBS has been able to have as many shows on as they have, to be honest. That's compared to what, you know, ABC only has The View and General Hospital are the only ones that are not their news shows. That's right, yeah. You know, so, yeah, it's extinct. It's looking like it's going to be an extinct form with what they've got on these areas. Because if you see the soap operas now, you know, the average age of soap opera viewers are, you know, people in retirement age. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's Young and Restless has viewers that are old and restless, I guess you could say. You know? but as I was told, basically, the Bell family that came up with it, they basically can keep it on the air because they're so rich. You know, they really don't need the show, but they can sell it to other markets and make a lot of money. So I think that one's going to be probably, I wouldn't be surprised, Young and the Restless was the last daytime soap opera still on the air in the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention this because even the national news shows in Los Angeles, the local news shows like the KTLA 5 Morning News, which is on from really 5:30 to about 9 a.m., competing against Today, Good Morning America, and whatever the CBS Morning News show is called this year. And then KTTV Fox 11's Good Day LA cream the national shows. I mean, there's no competition whatsoever. It's just, today's seen in LA, but it really doesn't get watched. The local shows supersede that big time, which proves that there's still a market for local programming, local broadcasting. And I wish that these stations would do more of that, because if you really want to save your, signal, if you will, go local, because that really is where the profit and the audience is, because people like that local feel. It's kind of like, I remember about 24 years ago when Radio 1 bought 100.3 FM out here and made it the beat. They hired Steve Harvey for a morning show and did really well. He was a host with Shirley Strawberry. But then about a year and a half, 2 years later, they decided to make the show nationally syndicated, and the ratings just fell big time because it lost its local feel. And, it did not work. CBS, to me, this is my opinion. I'm just kind of like philosophizing here. I don't know if this is true, but I think that CBS Mornings has the curse of canceling Captain Kangaroo, because when we were kids, Captain Kangaroo was on from 7 to 8 a.m. And so after that was a more lighthearted fare like CBS Sunday morning show is, with Charles Kuralt, I remember as a kid back in the late 70s, early 80s. And then in 1982, CBS said, we want to get on the action that Today and Good Morning America have, so we're going to relegate Captain to half an hour at 6:30, change the name to Wake Up with the Captain, and they put the CBS Morning News with Bill Curtis and Diane Sawyer. And that actually was a good lineup, but then Sawyer got promoted elsewhere within CBS, and he was teamed with Phyllis George, and the show became a disaster, and Curtis soon after left. I like him on the Decades binge they did a couple of years ago, but since then, CBS Mornings, they even tried to hire Bryant Gumbel for a couple of years after he left Today, and that didn't even work. So it's like it's never been in second or first place. It's always been a distant third for the CBS Morning News, whatever it's named this year.
Because they've had a lot of backstage control issues with it, and personalities of trying to get the right people with the right thing. And I think the more experienced, frankly, the more aggressive bookers are with Today and Good Morning America. It seems for a long time for what they had to try and get an exclusive, and how they got it there. On their area there. That's been the one area that CBS has never focused on properly, never gotten right. Everything else has been pretty good. They've done well. Of course, in nighttime, and they did well with Letterman for a time, and but as far as I can tell, that's just going to be. Nowadays, it's just kind of tougher to do a morning show, period, because there are so many of them out there, and people just don't rely on them the way they used to, to get the breaking news, to be honest. I'm not, when I'm doing it, a lot of times I'll get on the internet and see what's the latest stuff on Google News, or what I see people are sharing on Facebook. So it's just.
I think the networks.
I
think the networks have forgotten about counter programming, because CBS had the perfect counter programming with a kids show. Then the local stations that were on back in the day had either talk shows or cartoons. Because I remember,
or their own kids shows. Some of them. You'd see after the morning thing, you'd see like some would have kids shows. Some would have repeats of situation comedies usually. Some would have talk shows. Yeah, there was usually a good reason. They try to have a different approach to it. That's been the kind of unfortunate thing that we've had dealing with programming, is that by the 1980s, it became kind of set in stone that, okay, we'll have the morning shows will be game shows, maybe some talk shows. Afternoon will be soap operas, talk shows. It may shock people to know that, Password was such a big hit back in the 60s at 2:00 in the afternoons, that's what it was there. And that in the 70s, the Match Game was a big attraction on afternoons there on CBS there too. But then they expanded all the soap operas to 1 hour, and they've all, now they've been put on against each other. And it just, I was amazed and surprised, thankfully, when they did do the revival of Let's Make a Deal. They put it on in some markets in the afternoon. I'm like, good. They actually remember they can put a game show on afternoon,
Yeah.
It still airs in a lot of markets before noon, of course, but, it's officially it's still there in the afternoon if people want to see it there. So,
oh, yeah. Well, it's been a great time with you, Wesley, just about all these different things. We could probably go on for hours and hours. And you're on Stu's show a couple Wednesdays a month when it's on at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
One Wednesday every 3 months or so, 3 or 4 months. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was on every couple.
He's gone to doing monthly shows now, so it's easier for him to do that. I'll be on that. We usually have a show we do around in November for the Thanksgiving thing. So
okay. Wow.
Yeah, and I'll you can hear me on that show. That will announce me.
And what about Professor Steve Beverly's own TV channel? Do you get to go on that one as well? Because he hosts events
I've been on his show a couple of times. It's great talking with him. I was on there recently when he was doing a tribute to Peter Marshall passing away, and sharing my memories and thoughts about Peter, who was one of the all-time greats, and the Hollywood Squares, one of the all-time great game shows as well, and he was, we all were kind of hoping and praying he'd be able to make it to 100, but still 98 years old is a good run. He had a very good time, and, everybody I know who dealt with him loved him,
Yeah, he was a good friend of Gene Rayburn, I remember, and when he interviewed for Adam's book, Pete felt really bad that Gene couldn't, get the money and salary he deserved. And, he says, I tried to tell Gene, sign with my agent. He'll get you the best deal like you wouldn't believe. But I remember in his book, Backstage with the Original Hollywood Square, which is highly recommended. I just love that book.
Yep.
He talked about how one day between shows of Squares, he decided to walk around NBC studios, and he peeked into the studio where Wheel of Fortune was taping. And he said there were only 4 people in that audience during that particular taping. He says now you have to be on a waiting list for a year or two to get into the show.
Yeah, that reminds me too. I've got it in the book when COVID hit. They couldn't have anyone in the audience there for time safety reasons there, and then I talked to Scott Valentine, the audience booker there. They hit him up in the fall and say, Scott, we got to do something, because it's even with sweetening and the show just seems dead and everything. So he was able to set it up to meet with compliances, and he was basically having the contestants on the show sit out in the audience and clap and cheer for the ones there with enough space between them. That was judged fine at the time there. It was it was a tough time to get it there. But now it's and I also have in the book when they did the 8,000th show, which was one of the last ones Pat did. Members of the Facebook, the Wheel of Fortune alumni Facebook, convinced them that we could be in that audience. We'd be happy to do that. Please let us do that. And so they gave them like 75 or 80 tickets, and they said it was the most raucous audience they'd ever had. Pat came out and said, wow, and Vanna's like, we need this audience all the time. And they were there. They were able to keep a straight face. I didn't know it till it aired. But the one where the guy, it was one of the opening fast finger puzzles, and the guy guessed right in the butt, and everyone died laughing. That was during their taping there, and they said the laughter was going on so long that they had to edit it when it finally got on the show. Yeah. So.
It's interesting because I didn't realize the audience shouting Wheel of Fortune as the show begins was recorded. I was like all anxious. Man, I finally get to be part of the audience where we shout Wheel of Fortune. I'm like, this is taped? Yeah. I was bummed.
I know. It can be a little disorienting and saddening when you see those things like, oh, gosh, yeah. But, yeah, it went they said it was a really good show, and it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. It's just Pat being there 42 years was just an incredible run for anybody. It's going to be hard to beat. Yeah.
Wesley, thanks for being with us. Is there anything you want to add to conclude the interview?
Just that my book is available now on Amazon and also Barnes & Noble and some other book sites that you've got. You can check on Goodreads. It's I'd Like to Buy a Vowel, Spinning 50 Years of Wheel of Fortune. And it's got the whole story of the show from its inception to, like I said, the last couple of tapings with Pat Sajak. And I think anyone, even with a casual interest in the show, is going to have a good time reading it and remembering some events and learning some things they might not know.
Sounds good. Wes, thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Josh.
And since doing this interview back in August, we've gotten to see Ryan Seacrest hosting Wheel of Fortune. Now, I got a little bit of a sneak preview with my friend Lisanne and her daughters Lily and Eleni when we went to one of the first tapings of Ryan's new season, or the kind of debut of Ryan as host, back in early June of this year. And it was a fun episode, as mentioned earlier. Ryan interacted with the contestants very well. He also fielded questions from the audience. The question I asked him was, who was your favorite game show host growing up? And, of course, he said Pat Sajak. Now, looking back, I wished I had asked, who was your favorite radio disc jockey growing up? Maybe I'll ask him next time I go to a taping of Wheel, or maybe I'll get to meet him in person, hopefully one day, and ask that very question. But Ryan's been doing a very good job. Even those who are skeptical of him are saying, wow, he's just really, he's nailed it. And he and Vanna interact very well. So Ryan is just doing a great job. That's the good news. The sad news is a couple of days ago, we lost Chuck Woolery, the original host of Wheel of Fortune, the one who got it started. And, like a lot of you, Chuck was the first host of Wheel of Fortune that we remember because he was the first. And it took a lot of people by surprise. And he did that show for 7 years, did Scrabble for 6 years, Love Connection for 11 years. And if you want more information about the Wheel years from Chuck, including Wesley's book, but also I'd recommend highly Susan Stafford's book, Stop the Wheel, I Want to Get Off. That's a great read. That gives you even more. So Wesley's book as well as Susan Stafford's book are the ultimate Chuck Woolery Wheel of Fortune stories. Plus, Chuck gave an interview on YouTube that was just posted about a couple days ago. It was his last known interview, so I'd recommend that as well. It's just sad news. So until next time, this is Josh Jacobs for the Talking Archive. Keep your mind on the things above, and as you hit that open road, don't be a slow down spectator. And rest in Jesus, Chuck Woolery.